Welcome everybody to another edition of the Fantasy Forecheck, brought to you by the Ram 1500 Sport. Andy McNamara and the tanned return from vacation Nick Alberga.
Is it okay?
Looking good. You know, you're Cuba casual.
Yeah,
I love it. Looking
straight
good.
off the plane from Cuba. No, I'm not.
Phenomenal.
It was a good trip. It was great to be away from you. So.
Well, that's something.
I'm kidding. It's great to be No response from Andy McNamara.
He's back. The feeling is mutual. I will be away next week, so we'll get another little break.
Times.
Good to have you. Good to have you back, my friend. So today's show, as usual, we're going to do the schedule manipulation. And you know what? Hey, Nick, quick side point. If you listen to us during the 2 bye weeks around the All-Star break, you made up some ground. I know I did in the Rams Sportsnet fantasy hockey pool because so few teams were playing. And if you manipulated it properly, you made up some ground. We'll help you do that again this week. Top fantasy storylines, our top waiver pickups, and how to make yourself some cash in the Rams Sportsnet fantasy hockey pool. That's coming up in just a couple moments. But Nick, hey, it's trade deadline time, and that means it always has fantasy implications.
Yeah,
always.
And that was part of my conversation with my 20 fantasy thoughts this week was investigating buyers, sellers, and the undecided, I like to put it. I even had teams like Vancouver and Edmonton in there. I know they're firmly in a playoff spot right now, but there's just so much going on so quickly. I think you look at playoff races, the Western Conference is one I'm really looking at as opposed to the Eastern Conference, where I do feel like it's 10 teams for 8 positions there. So I think you want to look at names clearly like Chris Kreider and Tyler Toffoli, the 2 biggest rental names in my opinion up front at least. There's a lot of definitive buyers in my opinion. St. Louis, Colorado, Dallas, Boston, Tampa, the Maple Leafs, the Panthers. There are teams that are looking to buy. When it comes to sellers, I think it's a bit more scarce. I think Montreal, I put them in the sellers category. I don't think they really know what they are.
They're kind of that tweener zone, right?
There's a lot of teams like that. And again, in this day and age of parity and the way things break down in the 3-point game, you just never know. Carey Price is catching fire from Montreal.
Sure.
Very unlikely, but even teams like Buffalo and San Jose, who we're going to talk about, I mean, it's a scary time for both those organizations.
Well, it is, and they're done. They're done for this year, which then makes them sellers. And from a fantasy side, makes you think, okay, who could be on the move? Because it's not just the player themselves that gets traded, it's the impact of the team they left, who picks up the slack, and the team they go to, who might miss out from having a player.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think, you look at Buffalo first and foremost, the fantasy implications of a team being finished. They're about 10, 12 points out of a playoff spot right now. It's not looking good for Buffalo. Jack Eichel can do all he wants and produce and produce, score OT winners. I just think time is going to run out on the Buffalo Sabres. But I think from a fantasy perspective, as I mentioned in my 20 fantasy thoughts, again, just giving me so many shameless plugs right now.
Yeah, hey.
But Victor Olofsson's a guy I'm targeting, and he's supposed to come back in the next week or two. Played a lot with Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart to start his rookie season here, and he's a 16-goal scorer. There's value there, around 50% ownership there. I think in that respect, Jeff Skinner, very expendable in my world. I'm going back into the player next year. I'm done with Jeff Skinner this year. I'm sorry to say so.
Bury him.
Yeah, I'm finished there. I think Jack Eichel, you're still buying. And in between the pipes, Linus Allmark is out. Carter Hutton I'm going to talk about momentarily, but he's a guy you can look at in Buffalo. You'd have to think some pride's going to be available there. Like, that team has really, really struggled the last little while.
After such a good start.
I know. Well,
right?
It's the same old story for Buffalo.
Yeah.
9 straight seasons this would be of not making the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't know where you point the finger at this point in time because it just continues. San Jose, what's your feeling on San Jose? Because they're a team, and, I crunched the numbers for my fantasy mailbag on Friday. I couldn't believe only once officially, in my opinion, under Doug Wilson, they've missed the Stanley Cup playoffs.
It's
twice in the last 23 years.
I think that's what and maybe sometimes you're out on the West Coast, you forget about a team a little bit, but they're kind of consistent. They kind of have that a little bit of a feel to me of like the Detroit Red Wings, who are always there and you always expect it, so you almost forget about them a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the thing right now with San Jose, right? Just ravaged by injury, with all due respect to Barclay Goodrow. Now their first-line center, Tomas Hertl, goes down this week. Finished for the season. That to me was the final blow for San Jose this year. But you look at Goodrow, he's going to play with Kane and Meyer. I think there is some appeal there picking up Barclay Goodrow. He is going to pick up some points. I'm intrigued to see what happens with Joe Thornton when it comes to San Jose. And I'll also add, if you do own Brent Burns or Erik Karlsson, I'd investigate the trade market on those two. I think the sex appeal is still there with those 2 players, 2 of the top fantasy producers on the back end. It's up and down in San Jose, notwithstanding Evander Kane, who's had a really solid fantasy season. It's been a massive disappointment. But again, you look at the names like Erik Karlsson and Brent Burns, and you say, well, these guys are going to produce. They have for the last billion years in the NHL. But I look at San Jose. I look at the fact that Captain Logan Couture is nowhere close to returning from the fractured ankle. Hurdle's hurt. This team is bottom 5 in the league in offense. I'm probably jumping out on all those guys right now.
Try to go down. And then you mentioned Hurdle, but also other injury replacements. You have Barkov and Doughty. 2 guys a new week, a new set of injuries that we have to make up for.
Well, that's it. And that's why we have the biggest fantasy relevant news to start off the program every week. There's always injuries. I mean, it just continues in the NHL world. Just to piggyback sort of off Hurdle and replacements there. The 2 big names we're looking at for Hurdle replacements this week, Zach Hyman of the Maple Leafs, I'll talk about him more in depthly momentarily. And Jonathan, he has been really good. And Jonathan Drouin of the Montreal Canadiens, imminent return for him. He's going to slot in a top 6 look. Jesperi Kotkaniemi sent down to the American Hockey League. Make of that what you will. Maybe they rushed him along a bit too quickly. Alex Galchenyuk, who is now on the 4th line for Pittsburgh, by the way. Boy. It's been a disappointment there as well for him. But those are 2 pretty strong candidates, I think, if guys who with dual eligibility, center and left wing, that you can definitely look at and not skip a beat. I know Hurdle offered a lot in terms of fantasy this year, but it is what it is. Talked about the back end. So Drew Doughty's day-to-day, so is Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Alec Martinez and Jacob Chychrun, who have talked about quite a bit on the program, automatically the internal replacements there. And externally, Jared Spurgeon, Nate Schmidt, Devon Taves of the New York Islanders is where I would look for quick short-term replacement options.
And this isn't, to make note of that, this isn't going to be which shouldn't be multi-week injuries. It's a short-term, you kind of pick them up, play one of these players, and then maybe you drop them or stash them.
And that's important to note, and I'm happy you brought that up, because this time of year in fantasy hockey, you're not going to find your crown jewel on the waiver wire anymore. You're going week to week, game to game. That's just, it's a nature of the business right now in fantasy hockey, and you got to piece yourself to the fantasy playoffs, which, by the way, are 5 to 6 weeks away. And last but not least, you mentioned Alexander Barkov. It sounds like he's going to have an MRI as we speak here on Sunday. We'll find out if he plays against the Maple Leafs on Monday night. But I think if Barkov is forced to miss any time, Vinny Trocheck automatically gets that promotion to the top line, and we'll see again if Barkov does miss time. And luckily, we talk about it a lot in fantasy hockey. There is depth up the middle. You look at Eric Stahl, Ryan Johansson, Paul Stastny, all vets, but I think short-term and long-term, for that matter, they can provide some substantial boosts and gains for you. So every time I lose a centerman, I don't feel quite as bad because there is depth.
It's a deep year of it, right? Yeah. Now let's look at the schedule manipulation. We talked about that a little bit earlier. There are 12 teams that play 4 games this week. Those are the ones you want to target for your fantasy lineup, DFS, and of course the RAM Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. And 3 teams that are having 2-game schedules. Those are the ones you're trying to avoid.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, San Jose, Washington. Stay away from the waiver ads there. No. And we talked about San Jose. It is what it is. So the 4-game teams, 12 of them. We've broken it down to 3 teams, as you know. The New York Rangers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and lowly Detroit. I mean, they don't have much to play for. They're gonna have the best odds to get Alexis Lafreniere. It's still 18.5%. It's not great when you talk about mathematics when it comes to the Detroit Red Wings, but
numbers check out there.
Yeah, they always check out. Good luck to them though, Detroit. My goodness, what a season. But the New York Rangers, another thing to note, Chris Kreider leaves that game on Saturday night for the Rangers against the aforementioned Red Wings with an upper body injury, they're calling it, and certainly a guy you look at the rental market could likely go between now and February 24th. So document that. For the Rangers, I think waiver ads, you look at Capo Caco, maybe he gets a bit of promotion if Kreider has to miss time. And Igor Shesterkin, we've had a lot of questions the last couple weeks what to do with this rookie, but last I checked, there's only 1 goalie to start and 3 goalie options in New York. So I just think you have to be careful because the pride's still on the line. Henrik Lundqvist still a good goalie in my opinion. Alexander Georgiev, he's had his struggles as of late. And Igor Shesterkin. I don't think it's a guarantee that Georgiev's going anywhere between now and February 24th. So if you own Igor Shesterkin, just for now, I don't think it's a long-term ownership. I think you're going game to game, stream to stream when it comes to the youngster Shesterkin. But in a 4-game
there's a lot
week,
of bodies there.
Yeah,
to sort
exactly.
Out, right?
I mean, it's a 3-headed monster if you want to call it that. But just be wary of that when you make your waiver ads. I think from the Sportsnet Fantasy Pool perspective, or Tammy Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, who's 3 points, Ryan Strome at 2. Maple Leafs, another team we're looking at this week. A 4-game week for them includes a back-to-back. You'll see Michael Hutchinson. I actually streamed Michael Hutchinson in one of my leagues on Saturday night. Got a win, a 2-1 win against the Ottawa. You got to be cheeky with that type of movement. Rasmus Sandin's a look, 26% ownership.
Love Sandin. The time's coming up with Morgan Riley out. He's going to get the opportunity. We'll see over the time if, like you see with so many young players, they get knocked down a little bit. Teams figure them out and they have to rebalance. But right now, I love him as a pickup.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And Zach Hyman's another guy I'll talk about. I'll add to Kasperi Kapanen. So he was benched for internal accountability. Make of that what you will. A 4-game week coming for, and it happens so often in the NHL. A guy gets a nice little kick in the butt, wakes up and produces point-wise. So watch out for Kasperi Kapanen and a streamer look, especially in a week like this. And Detroit, Robbie Fabry, Philip Zadina. I'm a bit more weary to go near Detroit because they're not really good, to be quite honest. Tyler Bertuzzi, Dylan Larkin, and Philip Zadina are guys you look at in the Sportsnet fantasy hockey pool.
Let's go to our waiver wire pickups of the week. You mentioned a few options there, Nick, but for me at Ford, I'm going to Oliver Bjorkstrand of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And this guy, people forgot about him, I think. He was out for a month with a rib injury. Before the All-Star game, he came back, scored 2 goals in the 2 games, scored on Saturday night. He's taken a lot of shots, and this is someone kind of gets forgotten a little bit in Columbus, right? It's not a sexy team. But Bjorkstrand is somebody, dual position, dual winger eligibility. We like that.
Yeah.
You pop him in there, 37% ownership in Yahoo Leagues. I think he's a great ad.
He's putting the E in efficiency. He's like this year's Victor Arvidsson, 17 goals in 39 games for Oliver Bjorkstrand.
Yeah, really good.
And you're right, nobody really talks about Columbus. They've been a magical story. And the Corpedo, Jonas Corposalo, slated to come back in the next couple weeks. I would sell high on Elvis Merzlikins. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, but that's just some food for thought there. Zach Hyman, pretty simple for me at forward. I had this slotted on like Wednesday. Like he is ripping it up and nobody's talking about it, producing at a .75 clip around there, roughly a game.
Nice.
He has 22 points in the last 23 games. Yes, Zach Hyman. And the exposure to Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, that could be the hottest line in the NHL right now. And astounded to find out he's only around 25% ownership in Yahoo standard leagues. Like I'm jumping all over Zach Hyman, especially in a week where it's a 4-game week for the Maple Leafs. This guy is producing big time and nobody's talking about it.
Ride the hot hand, right? That's the thing, folks. If you see a trend, a streak, ride it.
Jake Virtanen, another guy.
Right, there you go. So I like Hyman there. On defense, Adam Fox of the Rangers, and he's 44% ownership. This is somebody who I like as, let's say, my 4th defender option or a depth at. He is consistent. He's steady. He has a high floor. He's not going to wow you in the stats. He's not going to be going off for 20, but he's not going to get you a minus at all. Nice, steady defender on the blue line. So Adam Fox is someone you can count on. Again, high floor. If you're looking for just that maybe extra piece and you're taking risks elsewhere, Adam Fox is a good ad.
Yeah, and I like the relation, too, with the head coach, David Quinn, who's got a history in college hockey, and Adam Fox, of course, coming from college hockey. And in general, the Rangers moving the puck this year, and Artemi Panarin's having quite the year. I'm going to talk about him in mere moments, too. The back end, I'm going to Chris Tanev. The Vancouver Canucks have been providing a lot of sneaky value. Look at JT Miller. I think JT Miller's top 5 in points since January 1. I know.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Even Bo Horvat's a guy I endorsed this week in my 20 fantasy thoughts to trade for. You know, these guys don't have the appeal of other guys because of their name brand and being in that market in Vancouver, but the Canucks are sneaky good. Like Elias Pettersson, we know about him. Quinn Hughes having an outstanding run here, potentially getting in the Calder conversation. Cale Makar had a big lead, but Quinn Hughes has been outstanding for Vancouver. I'm looking at Chris Tanev. You look at his body of work the last 5, 4 assists, +5. If you have penalty minutes as well, he's got 14 penalty minutes in the last 5 games. So I think he's providing extensive category coverage, which is vital this time of year. As we mentioned on the back end, like D, every week you're going to probably change one of your defensemen. It is what it is. There's not as much depth in the back end. But Chris Tanev, surely a guy I'm looking at. And in between the pipes, we'll stay with the Buffalo conversation.
Okay.
Linus Ullmark out for roughly the next 3 to 4 weeks. I'm not as confident in this, but Carter Hutton, I guess, go to him. There's got to be some pride in Buffalo, around 25% ownership. I also noted in my 20 fantasy thoughts, Jonas Johansson, their backup goalie right now, 24 years of age, restricted free agent, 13-3-3 at 2.19 in the American Hockey League. Buffalo will get it. Is looking for a spark anywhere they can get it, and I'm sure the first sign of Hutton faulting, he has struggled this year. I think Johansson, I don't know what way he goes.
Get a look.
Yet. You have to take a look at that.
Get a look, and that's planning ahead. And again, if he doesn't come up, then you drop him.
Exactly.
Right? It's looking ahead, but it's those type of additions this time of year that can give you that push to get into your fantasy playoffs or help put you over the top into better seeding.
Yeah.
In between the pipes, to me, I'm going Mike Hands of Stone Smith off of that
Sick scrap, eh? I was going to come in just Tilly Andy today. I was fired up about that game.
That was awesome. I don't think there's fighting fantasy points for goaltenders, but if there was,
That's
be
in the
awesome.
conversation. A couple weeks back, we talked about, Pecorine scores that goal.
Yeah.
You don't get credit for a goal. Why don't you?
Why
A
not?
goalie takes a penalty. Why aren't we getting penalty marks?
Yeah, it happens rarely.
Let's write a thesis sometime.
Let's do it.
We got
You
a
can
lot
do
of
that.
free time in our week. You're going on vacation.
That's
do
right.
that, okay?
Yeah, I'll get right on that. I'll tell Mickey to write it for me. Yeah. 37% ownership for Mike Smith. Look, we know it's been a timeshare between him and Mikko Koskinen, but he's won 5 of his last 6 starts. Got credit even with the fight. Almost what's the goalie equivalent of a Gordie Howe hat trick?
Yeah, close enough. He scored before too. Yeah.
So you have Mike Smith. Again, this is something to track, but he's trending in a better direction than Koskinen. Maybe it's more of a timeshare. Maybe he starts trending that way. You grab him, secondary goaltender option, DFS play him. Mike Smith makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. And again, we've talked about this almost ad nauseum this year when it comes to the Oilers and their commitment to the goalie tandem, right? They're going back and forth, Koskinen and Mike Smith, and Koskinen and Mike Smith. But I do think it's integral right now just to ride the hot hand. And quietly, the Oilers in a playoff spot. We get around February 24th, as we talked about buyers and sellers. I would put them in the sort of limbo department. I think they're fine keeping what they have, but they also, if they're in a position to buy and make their team better and have McDavid in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you take your chances. So I'm really, really intrigued by Edmonton down the stretch here.
Well, let's look now at a chance to win some money, some weekly prizes. Your share of $50,000, baby.
Manziel time.
In the Ram Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. And the Fantasy Forecheck, this show is brought to you by the Canadian exclusive Ram 1500 Sport. This full-size pickup gives Canadians exceptional capability under the hood, advanced technology inside, and impeccable styling throughout, just like Nick's shirt. It's the Ram 1500 Sport. And it's
for you.
For life in the North. And that shirt also a good bowling shirt. I like it.
I'm never going to wear it again.
I dig it. But here's in the Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool, this is the great thing about the league. You could be playing all year, or you can jump in and you pick 6 forwards, 4 defensemen, 2 goalies, and in each position group, you slap the Ram capable tag on one of them, and that gives you double the points. And the players are valued at a 1 to 4 point price tag. You have 30 points to spend. So at forward, who are you going with?
Yeah, the secret's out. I wear blue for the New York Rangers.
Oh.
Artemi Panarin, top 10 point getter since January 1st. He's a 4-point value. It's almost sneaky what this guy is doing with the New York Rangers. And you look at his career statistics. Everywhere he's played, he won the Calder Trophy at 35 years of age, it seemed, with Chicago. He was great with Chicago, great with Columbus, does not skip a beat, wants to play near water. I don't care. Goes to the New York Rangers, produces there. Has created tremendous value for guys like Mika Zibanejad and Ryan Strome up the middle and Anthony DeAngelo on the back end. So I'm riding Artemi Panarin. He's my Ram-capable pick up front. Who do you got?
I'm going with Austin Matthews and his sweet stash. Doesn't matter who he's playing. Doesn't matter where he's
Bieber
playing.
with the stash now?
Really?
Yeah, that's like
that's a thing now.
stepbrothers stuff,
Creepy mustaches.
We become best friends?
I guess, I suppose.
How about the mitts on Bieber? You think he's going to score on Binnington?
No, I hope not. I can't stand Justin
Chopping
Bieber.
onions.
I can't. I'm going Binnington.
I'm a big Bieber fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Not a fan. Go
Okay,
Binnington.
we'll agree to disagree.
We'll see.
Hopefully Bieber watches this.
Come on, at me, Bieber. Come on now. At me. Let's go.
He's too busy stick handling.
He's too busy stick handling, yeah. Austin Matthews.
New album, February 14th, from Stratford.
Third overall fantasy hockey ranking, overall. So I don't care if he's in the most expensive bracket and he cost me 4 points. The guy scores 2 goals and an assist in his last 3. You know what Austin Matthews can do, and you get that extra opportunity in the 4th game. Makes total sense. So give me Matthews.
I mean, it goes without saying. We talk about Hyman, the Marner-Matthews connection. I actually dressed Marner as well. I got Hyman on my team this week for the Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. I'm going to keep with the Leafs contingent. I know we're going to get the ads on
Leafs
social.
Nation. Yeah, they're good, people. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. I like muting people. I don't prefer blocking people, troll away, because I'm the biggest troll on the internet. But I'm going to go with scary Tyson Barrie. He has quietly been producing, and I know there's a lot of haters in Toronto when it comes to this guy. He is what he is. I mean, you should have watched him when he was on Colorado. He was an offensive defenseman there. Nothing has changed from his time in Colorado. Sheldon Keefe has him playing some inspired hockey. I thought he was excellent, by the way, in that 2-1 OT win against Ottawa.
More chances with Morgan Riley out, too.
Exactly. I mean, he's running the first power play unit, not looking over his shoulder. 29 games played under Sheldon Keefe, 5 goals, 18 assists, 23 points. So he's hovering around a point per game. Tyson Barrie, my Ram-capable pick on the back end.
I dig it. I'm going to stay in Canada, but go to Winnipeg and the Jets. So what I did for my lineup this week was I went high-end guys at forward and at goaltender, so I needed to find some value.
The luxury.
Right. So I went Neil Pionk, 2-point value, and what you want from your defenseman is how often are they on the ice? How often are you going to get opportunity? He's at least 23 plus minutes a night.
Yeah.
Okay. So you pop him on. What he's doing is he's one of those guys where he's playing the 4 times again this week. He already has a career high in points and gives you value in those secondary fantasy stat categories. So Pionk makes sense.
In between the pipes.
Yes.
Let's go there.
Let's go.
I'm going to go to Philip Grubauer of the Colorado Avalanche. I know he got lit up by Philadelphia on Saturday night, but coming out of the bye week, like I get it. So at Buffalo, at Ottawa, at Columbus, at Minnesota, I believe the Columbus-Minnesota is a back-to-back. I would envision Grubauer playing 3 of the 4. Colorado's an excellent hockey team. I think if you talk about teams looking to be the biggest buyers between now and February 24th, it's Colorado. They have the assets, they have the cap space, so watch out for them in terms of the buyer's market. And watch out for Grubauer in general. He's had an up and down season so far. I think there's significant value in Ram capable of picking Philip Grubauer this week. A, the easy schedule, and B, the team in front of him.
I'm going to go Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins. The Bruins have sorted themselves out. Rask is back, missed 3 games with a concussion. Looked good Friday. And when you look at the Boston Bruins in this time of year and what Tuukka Rask can provide, you see him, what he's been able to do in January is not give up more than 2 goals the whole month. The whole month.
Yeah.
So we know how good Rask is. We know how good the Bruins can be and are getting back to being. So he's going to cost me 4 points, but I think it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, and I think in the Sportsnet fantasy hockey pool, you want a stingy defensive team because you're aiming for wins and you're aiming for shutouts. That's the point, allocation that you're looking for. So certainly a very safe pick. I like it. Buffalo's an awesome team, or Boston's an awesome team, not Buffalo.
Well, Buffalo is the other end of the
Yeah, they're going to riot on Chippewa Street soon. It's not going to be a great set. That's an underrated bar strip,
Fire in Lackawanna.
by the way.
Yeah, there you go.
Great bar strip.
Excellent.
Okay, so we're wrapping up here. Andy's the big football guy.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I guess we'll give our Super Bowl picks, right?
Right. For the big game, Kansas City and San Francisco, I'm going to say San Fran 24-21. Yes, Jimmy G.
Got the Greek guy, quarterback?
Oh, yeah.
I know Garoppolo.
Handsome Jimmy Garoppolo.
I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. I'm a big offense guy. I don't know much about football, but I know this guy's really good at football and good at throwing the ball, so we'll go with Patrick Mahomes. I'm more into the prop bets.
The prop bets are a lot of fun.
Like Demi Lovato, is she going to go over 2 minutes?
Got to be over. Because you look at there's a science to this. You look at the style of the singer, where you have like the vibrato where they go like this, like the old Christina Aguilera. She's going to drag that thing out.
Because this is your moment in the sun.
Yeah,
right?
man.
This is her big comeback.
Sure.
Is it not, Demi Lovato?
You go over a minute 58, I think that's a money bet.
Yeah.
Let's go. What's also money is our picks. Hope you enjoyed the show.
Segue.
Leave it in the comment section below. This has been the Fantasy Forecheck, brought to you by Ram. We will see you next week.
This guy's professional.